Thetford Academy, a historic institution dedicated to educating youth from the Upper Valley of Vermont and New Hampshire and all over the world. The school is committed to diversity and strives to build, maintain, and promote a culture of equity and inclusion. This unique, welcoming environment has cultivated young minds and has paved the way for its students to leave a significant impact on the world. Since its founding in 1819, Thetford Academy has upheld 5 principles of education: excellence, commitment, cooperation, caring, and diversity. These principles were and continue to be instilled in the students of Thetford Academy, and these students carry Thetford's values with them their entire lives. Through their devotion to these principles, Thetford Academy alumni have left a positive impact on the world. These are their stories, the stories of Thetford Academy in action. Justin Smith Morrill grew up in Stratford, Vermont, and attended Thetford Academy at an early age. After school, he worked as a merchant clerk and made several business connections that eventually led him to the world of politics. In 1854, Morrill was elected to the 34th American Congress as a member of the Whig Party. It is here where Morrill had a significant impact on the future of the United States as one of the founders of the Republican Party. Morrill won re-election 11 times as a Republican and served consecutive terms in Congress until his death in 1898. While in office, he played a role in some remarkable moments in American history. In the 39th United States Congress, Morrill served on the Joint Commission on Reconstruction, which drafted the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. This amendment granted civil rights to the newly freed slaves following the American Civil War. However, Justin Morrill's crowning achievement as a legislator was his drafting of the Land Grant College Act, known as the Morrill Act. This act, signed into law by Abraham Lincoln in 1862, established federal funding for higher education in every state in the Union. Today, many colleges established by the Morrill Act have created a Morrill Hall in his honor.
This bill proposes to establish at least one college in every state upon a sure and perpetual foundation, accessible to all, but especially to the sons of toil, where all of needful science for the practical avocations of life shall be taught. Justin Smith Morrill.
From his experiences at Thetford Academy, Justin Morrill knew that education was a human right and used his political influence to ensure every child in America had the chance to achieve excellence. Alanson Sanborn was born and raised in Thetford, so it was only natural that he would attend Thetford Academy in his early years. Here he was taught the discipline of commitment, a discipline that would have enormous impact on his later life. In adulthood, Sanborn worked as a humble school teacher in Thetford, but after the Civil War began, he realized he had a duty to serve his country. He chose to fight for the Union Army and was eventually placed in charge of an all-black regiment stationed in Virginia. On the 11th of July, 1863, Sanborn's regiment was traveling through Norfolk, Virginia, to the Customs House. Recent Union victories had made the situation for Northern troops in the South dangerously volatile. On their way through town, the troops passed by a dry goods store, where the local surgeon and notorious racist Dr. David M. Wright stood by and watched the black troops parade past.
You boys better take off those uniforms and put back on your chains.
Sir, it's only fair to caution you that if you repeat your inflammatory remarks towards my men, my company will arrest you. I would rather die in the field, fighting for my country, than be spared at home in finest ease, while my brothers die on the altar of their country. It is a work of justice, a work of humanity, to elevate downtrodden humanity. Lieutenant Allinson Sanborn.
Sanborn's commitment to equal opportunity for all human beings never wavered, even in the most dangerous situations. Sanborn sacrificed himself standing up for those who could not. A true American hero, born and raised in Thetford, Vermont. It was a windy evening on November 14, 1942, when a fire was discovered on the Thetford Academy campus. Before any fire department could reach the scene, the wind had spread the fire through the buildings. A crowd of 1,000 people watched in horror as their beloved school burned to the ground. Many tried their best to save what they could. People rushed to save volumes of books from the library, furniture from the girls' dormitory, and records from the academy building. Despite these efforts and those of the fire departments, 4 school buildings crumpled to the ground that night. Even the steeple bell, which called for the end of classes every day since the school opened in 1819, fell. Damages to the school buildings were put at $100,000. And while insurance could cover some of the damages, it still left a hefty bill to pay. In addition, the $115,000 cost to rebuild the school in 1949 put Thetford Academy in a dicey economic situation. Mr. Carl Anderson, principal of Thetford Academy, took charge in organizing efforts to get the school restored and the debt paid off. He reached out to the State Board of Education and the Clark School in Hanover, New Hampshire. Both were eager to help assist in whatever way they could. The school board provided the academy with desks and blackboards, while the Clark School provided dormitory equipment. In the beginning of 1950, seeing that Anderson was still struggling to pay off the school's debt, numerous organizations within Thetford and the surrounding area donated over $5,000 to the academy. These organizations included the Ladies' Benevolent Society of Thetford, the West Fairley Village Improvement Society, the Class of 1909, the Women's Society of Lyme, and many more. Because of the cooperation of the local Thetford community members and the outstanding leadership of Carl Anderson, the school recovered from this dramatic financial tragedy. As a result, the school stands today, continuing to teach future generations of the importance of cooperation. Mary Greenleaf Clement Leavitt was a very bright student when she attended Thetford Academy in the mid-1800s, a time when the education of women was a controversial practice. Leavitt was exposed to genuine care for social equality at Thetford Academy. Later in life, she would make this need for societal betterment her personal lifelong passion. In adulthood, Leavitt worked as a school teacher in Boston, Massachusetts. However, after she met Frances Willard, a prominent member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, Leavitt's career dramatically shifted towards social activism. Leavitt organized the first WCTU chapter in Boston and served as president of this chapter from 1879 to 1880. The next year, Leavitt abandoned her private schooling job and worked for the union full-time, traveling to various areas in New England promoting temperance and women's suffrage. Her success here got the attention of the national WCTU, who began to send her all around the country promoting temperance. In a fairly risky move, Frances Willard decided to send Leavitt on an international mission, with very little funding to support such an endeavor. Fortunately, the time was right for temperance abroad, and Leavitt found many eager listeners in places like Australia, China, and especially India, where she controversially promoted and popularized the idea of self-rule, free from British influence. While Leavitt primarily promoted social improvement through temperance on her international travels, she always thought that her greatest accomplishment was in regard to her work with women's rights.
The greatest value of my years of work lies in the impetus the labors of a woman have given to development among women in remote places. Mary Greenleaf Clement Leavitt.
Mary Greenleaf Clement Leavitt's care for female betterment and the betterment of society had profound impact on those who listened to her message. Her work paved the way for the downtrodden to rise up and enact much-needed social change, improving the world. Seven years before the outbreak of the American Civil War, Thomas Morris Chester left Monrovia, Liberia, to attend Thetford Academy in 1854. Chester was originally born in the United States, a son of two abolitionist parents. As an early black student of the school, Chester saw the stark contrast between how he was treated in the academy and how other African Americans were mistreated in other parts of the country. Chester moved back to Liberia after graduating from the academy in 1856, and this contrast lingered within him. He found his calling when the American Civil War broke out in 1861. Chester moved back to America and helped recruit and establish the all-black 54th and 55th Massachusetts Infantry Regiments. He also captained a militia and stood on guard ready to fight during the famous Gettysburg Campaign through Pennsylvania. Right up until the end of the Civil War, Chester also worked as a correspondent for the major news publication, the Philadelphia Press. After the war, he moved to New Orleans, where at that time African Americans experienced an increase in political power. Chester practiced as a lawyer and was the superintendent of two public education districts. His wife was college educated and taught at an all-black academy. After fighting hard for it, Thomas Chester could finally live a peaceful and prosperous life in America. Since its inception, America has been a diverse melting pot of culture. American citizens, no matter what their creed, have a right to this happy life. All of these incredible stories of American heroism share one common root: Thetford Academy. This wonderful school has created so many fine American citizens because of the core values it instills within its students. Through the inspirational tenures of Carl Anderson, Reuel Barrett, Fred Torrey, and Martha Rich, and now through the efforts of over 6 hardworking staff, Thetford Academy continues to foster greatness in its students to this very day. While we may not know who ultimately will, it is certain that every graduate of Thetford Academy is prepared to take on the world and achieve greatness.